Welcome to another episode of the Impact Café. And this time we have a special episode because we're going to talk about the circular economy. And we accomplish this with a group of pioneers who paved the path towards a sustainable future through innovative projects or by acting as catalysts. The guests, I'd like to introduce them to you all. Lisbeth, Arend, Wilma and Banu. Welcome and let's have a nice conversation. Lisbeth. I actually want to start with you. You're a lecturer at Windesheim. You can inform us briefly about the specifics, but I just want to know, as a starting point, let's assume I'm a novice. And we are currently in the process of transitioning from a linear economy to an economy that follows a circular model. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, well, a linear economy is basically an economy where we extract raw materials from the ground and make things out of them. We employ that, we make a purchase of it, we utilize it, and then the consumer or the individual who utilized it throws it away and disposes of it. So you place one on the earth and then you generate a substantial amount of waste material in the process. And the circular economy, well, you are essentially striving to preserve as much value as possible from the products you have produced. And so you are attempting to complete the cycle. In this way, the amount of waste is reduced to a minimum and the raw materials, referred to as virgin materials, are extracted from the ground in the most minimal manner possible. At present, I am unaware of the Dutch term for these raw materials.
And quickly, for the other guests, a circular economy, what does that mean to you?
For me, that really means an opportunity to build a new system, a new economic system that is sustainable, that lasts longer, and that also gives hope to a new generation again.
Good. Hey, Wilma.
I'm totally on board with you guys, because for us, at least where I work, circular economy also means giving as many resources as possible a new lease on life. We're also talking about the air ladder, but that's something a lecturer should definitely know. But of course, we're trying our best to give the items a second life as well. So just keeping things in the relationship, but that would actually be all you need to know, right?
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. What we're adding is CO2 limitation, trying to bring CO2 emissions to zero as far as possible. Some inclusivity, but I guess that won't be dull for you.
That is definitely nothing else. No, we had more than 700 individuals working for us in the previous year, or in the year 2022, those individuals who made valuable contributions to the circular economy in the city of Zwolle.
In our industry, the construction industry, demolition industry, there are a lot of materials involved. If you look at the total waste streams in the world or in Europe, with a total amount of resources at your disposal, you can definitely make a significant dent in the construction industry if you make a change or adjustment to it. A good example I always come across, we did not destroy a structure in Arnhem, but we took it apart. And then we used that to build a new building. And as a result, we prevent 20,000 tons of waste from being generated in Arnhem because we don't destroy it. So it doesn't go on the truck as construction and demolition waste, but it goes as building material. 20,000 tons in one project. Then we don't need 20,000 tons or more of materials at the new construction site. I don't need any iron residue, I don't need any gravel, no cement. So I'm saving over 20,000 tons of raw materials. And that saves a total of 3,500 tons of CO2 because I do not make steel scrap in order to melt steel again. So in all respects, you have those three pillars, the main pillars of circularity. When you talk about resources here, we have got those covered.
Yes, I do not want to make it all heavy or anything, but I am genuinely curious to be able to do that. It's a strong desire of mine to acquire that ability. Do you get all the possibilities? Do you have all the freedoms to achieve that goal? Or do you have to adhere to laws and regulations, etc.?
Weird, but you must follow the rules. That's also true in new construction. Why are buildings being demolished due to not meeting requirements anymore?
However, does that impose a limit on you? Yeah, without a doubt. What are the limitations that you encounter?
Whatever you construct must adhere to the GTK and have a satisfactory number of installation facilities in accordance with the applicable building regulations. It has to be safe and energy efficient.
That is understandable, naturally. But would you like to make any modifications or adjustments to that? You betcha.
That's where we are in the transition now. You have to ensure that can't just happen. We'll watch together. Then the group you're in becomes much larger. You're not just talking about the demolition world, you're broadening it. You also have to involve the construction world. However, we also mentioned that it is crucial to involve not only the regulator, but also the manufacturer and the banker in the process. These are a few examples of parties that need to brainstorm, as they require a different approach.
I also think, sorry Wilma, what we actually discussed prior to the episode was that it is also considered from philosophical perspectives. So from an anthropological perspective, well, what does living actually mean, and how do I live well in this world, and what does that mean for me in terms of finding fulfillment and happiness? And of course it has to be safe and meet the building regulations, but that conversation is also very much alive around circular. So how can we actually bring about that change and construct a world where we are all genuinely happy and find true meaning in it?
If we're going to make a system change, let's do it right from the get-go. Yes, absolutely.
What I find interesting is how do you actually ensure, because you mentioned virgin materials that are more expensive than salvaged materials, because that's at least what we've experienced, is precisely the dismantling or taking apart of existing things. That often makes it much more expensive, which ultimately hinders the reuse of materials, even though it's much better. True pricing means considering how much trouble you cause with the product you make.
So then we are back at the manufacturer, correct? If he does not see it himself, how are we going to let that run in the price mechanism? We always talk about creating added value, especially in the construction industry and the real estate sector. We count everything in terms of money. However, we already tally a substantial number in the background in terms of the brands you assist with your work.
But money has to come from somewhere. Look, we are involved in urban mining, collecting a ton of hard plastics. We bring people in, but regrettably we are unable to sell them. And 6 months prior, that was still of monetary value. And presently, the virgin materials are significantly more affordable compared to the ones we have extracted. And that means that the manufacturer will once again choose a virgin material because there is no legislation that requires them to use recycled plastics.
There's already a mechanism in place, the CO2 system. CO2 isn't the answer to everything, and it's not the problem with everything. But you're already addressing a lot of inequality. The system is in place, but there are still too many exceptions, and the amount is not fully set.
No, well, that's the problem.
The interesting thing is that the municipality of Utrecht says, well, we've done a serious calculation on it. Actually, we price each ton of CO2 at €875, valued at €875. In short, if one contractor emits a ton more CO2 than the alternative, we'll add €875 to the cost or give the other one a discount.
But that doesn't solve the plastic problem. Look, we have raw materials. Those are plastics, which are now becoming worthless because the municipality of Utrecht is charging €875 for them.
If we fully establish it as law and regulations, then we have reached our goal.
Well, it is evident that the source of this is Europe, specifically the European Green Deal Initiative. The CSRD is an example of that, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, with a fancy word. And in that, it is actually prescribed that, particularly at this present moment in time, the listed companies, they must be extremely transparent and provide full disclosure about their entire production chain. But that also means that those smaller companies in that chain, we also need to be very transparent about, well, what type of damage am I inflicting upon the environment or causing to social well-being? Is it possible for me to scam people, for instance, in a different country on the opposite side of the globe? Is there a list now?
Yeah, and on top of that, you also have producer responsibilities that you naturally put in place in a Green Deal, and also new design principles and regulations that really cater to that so that you can actually make a difference in the design phase. And eventually that level playing field is created that you're actually talking about, because that's really a collaboration between different organizations, but also Europe, the Netherlands, the municipalities, the provinces. We all have things to do, really.
However, is not the responsibility for that transition way too much on the government, banks, and big companies? Shouldn't individuals also play a role in ensuring a smooth and successful transition? Is there enough attention, for example, for local initiatives?
To be honest, I think there is a lot of potential to really harness that power. I agree with that. But there is definitely an eye for that. It really varies from municipality to municipality, what capacity you have and what topics you can focus on. We're lucky as hell to have a kick-ass CE team. What makes it so that we have real people who can focus on different topics, so that you can also empower small entrepreneurs or even individual people better. And that helps tremendously. Just by structurally organizing that, there is actually still something of significant value to it.
But it is also a system change. That transition is a system change, and you need all parties for that. So you are unable to truly accomplish it independently. So you require both the government and Europe and the large companies and the small ones, but certainly also the consumer, for instance. So how are you planning to get the consumer on board with that? Well, you were just discussing the air ladder. The most effective approach to being circular and sustainable is simply to not consume, to consume less. Every single one of us has to make that transition in unison as a cohesive unit.
On the other hand, obviously, there is also the aspect of producing less. That is the business side of it. There, the regulations really delve into it, but that's the collaboration.
Just from your position at Windesheim, in what ways can education and research make a meaningful impact on the process of accelerating growth and progress?
We engage in practical research with companies and governments to provide valuable insights and solutions for real-world challenges. Furthermore, there are also various social organizations which in fact refer to different things. However, our main focus is on exploring ways to accelerate the transition and facilitate the process of change. Where do obstacles, for instance, arise in the collaboration? What are the key factors that contribute to success? Which buttons can you start turning to accelerate that transition? Well, for example, we have a nice piece with the municipality, or
We have a few.
8 municipalities are involved in projects, and there are also a few other municipalities that we are looking at, doing research on how the municipality can play a good role in that whole transition. What are they running into? Well, Zwolle is also included. Panu, I think you're participating. Yeah, that's correct. Another project we're working on, Lagamaten, is also involved. It's a investigation into how the design team operates differently in circular construction projects and its impact on project outcomes. Because in a circular construction project, you actually have to invest significantly more in the design phase. And then you have to have a lot of different parties already involved, from the regulations, but also the demolisher, who is no longer a demolisher. So the architect, right, those roles, they change, and we are conducting research to explore how we can enhance that process, the design process, in order to make it more efficient and effective.
Can you name 1 or 2 success factors?
For the process of transition in general, wow, that is indeed a very good question. I am impressed by the depth of your inquiry. In my opinion, when it comes to circular construction, it is of utmost importance to have a clear understanding of the shared ambition from the outset. Working closely with the team, it is crucial to establish and communicate the desired goals and objectives for the circular ladder. This ensures that all stakeholders are aligned and working towards a common vision for the project. In order to ensure that you also adhere to that, because what is frequently observed in the process is that when it becomes slightly challenging, solutions are often selected that, well, may not necessarily be circular, but rather tend to be in the linear direction. And then rely on convenience. So if you are truly clear with each other about that vision and ambition, then it is going to be much easier to navigate any challenges that may arise along the way.
And how are we going to make sure we don't fall back? That's a tough question. We can't answer that.
By tackling it head on, one aspect that is related to this here is the salvaging of building components. For example, the concrete floors from an existing building. We want to apply those again to create new buildings. Then you have a one-on-one discussion, then we are at R3 stage, then a reuse of resources. That means that we're not going to fill those things up with concrete again. We have to saw them loose because they're all covered in concrete. So they're not detachable in that sense, but we detach them. Next, we want to build the removable part too. So basically, we put them together using a clamp or a screw technique. Those rules don't apply here because they're based on linear techniques. Every contractor will say, I have to put a pressure truck on there because that's safe and that's all been proven. But yeah, we've got to do it differently now. So you have to approach it ambitiously, where in this case, TU Eindhoven says, we have already done a study on that, or there is a study going on. Join us in everything we do. Take a peek. Don't keep the cards close. Get in on it. Feel free to join us. Can we have a look? They pick up that piece by scientifically substantiated evidence of how to apply such a channel plate here. Otherwise, we'd be busy with that for years, costing hundreds of thousands or millions. And then your project is overflowing because you set the ambition so high. You also handle domestic affairs. You have a technical university. You have existing research. Brussels is okay with that because there's lots of funding as long as you do the right things. And then you keep it at that level where you say, yeah, normally everyone would drop out because no one has done this, and why should we make it very difficult? Let's refill them with concrete. But you don't want that. You need willpower to do it.
I think what might be good to mean is that a lot of factors also have to do with the decision to choose linear again. Apart from that, the construction closure is organized in that way. It is also true that there are a lot of ambitions in the field of developing countries. So apart from circular ambitions, we also have the energy transition that has ambitions. We have biodiversity that we take into account, affordability of homes, and several other factors. What we actually saw in the Vollen municipalities, well, we saw this problem too, and then we started a pilot with the AmbidiWeb. That's a tool from within the construction industry itself, so we have a tool we can use ourselves, but partners who also use it can apply it in our area development up front. And in fact, it actually prevents the stacking of ambitions from the front as well, and that is really nice. Then you start looking at what's happening in the area in terms of area development from the front end. What factors are we dealing with? And indeed, what ambitions do we want to achieve and where are we going to focus on? Make sure you also document those agreements somewhere so you can always fall back on them when needed. And that is truly nice because then you have it written down somewhere for real and tangible. And then you can also discuss with your partners like, okay, if we give up something, what does that mean? And where do we deliver? What does that imply for residents' living situation?
Yeah, nice little notorious one. You're talking about residents. Then I'll just approach him from the human side. Wilma, you mentioned that individuals who possess manual dexterity are crucial in a cyclical transformation process. Can you explain that?
I really like that one. There are obviously a great number of articles put together made. So you're buying... We just heard that you have kids. We have a ton of toys. I showed Banu this afternoon. A whole lot of toys may look like hard plastic on the outside, but there are actually these little metal screws that make it not hard plastic after all. So essentially, you are unable to eliminate it from the hard plastic material. We'll take that apart. And making sure we actually separate all those raw materials. So you actually possess a complete multitude of materials. This chair I am sitting on, it is composed of various materials. So you can't just throw it away completely if you don't want it anymore.
The enjoyable part is, sorry to interrupt you, those chairs you are sitting on are manufactured from bottles from Amsterdam Canal.
Well, look at that, fantastic. But then when it's end of life, and it will be at some point, it's made up of different materials, you know. He'd probably be easy to dismantle, but that dismantling, that's manual labor. And for that kind of work, you really need people who have that enjoying repetitive work. And that is still very much the case now.
Same here, it is very relatable. With us, it is the electrical installations, particularly the installations in a demolition building. We'll remove those in the largest components. Won't fully dismantle on the spot. Not practical. They'll go out as big as possible if they fit on a truck. And now they continue in the circular trajectories to Lucrato, which is the work learning company where we have learned. Currently, 84 people with distance to labour market find this job beautiful. They have unique qualities. Yeah, and then with sheltered workshops that can get to work with that. Those who appreciate repetitive work and put it on the table. So that fits really well. And there we have something that is included in the new plan. We're in the process of establishing a circular centre where we actually already have a job for about 120 people.
Nice example.
then also examine how you can expand into a job. How can you further enhance your qualifications? We simply referred to it as, what did you refer to that as?
People with diverse traits.
Well, precisely, but they have all been categorized by all the regulations encompassing them. But you can also use those different compartments in very different ways.
In my opinion, there are numerous individuals who have a multitude of qualities that, if they are stigmatized, then it indicates that they face a significant barrier when it comes to accessing the job market. But you could also say that you can organize the work like this, that you can actually use that quality of that person very well. Several times per week, the pragmatic educational institutions come to our location. And they come to our store to set up. And there are just kids, they're only 15, 16 years old, who learn with us what it means to come on time to work. And some young individuals, once they have been, then it is on that location. All of the spectacles are positioned perfectly upright. That is a massive quality. If you are aware that you possess that quality and you are able to maximize it, then an individual can engage in their work with a great deal of enjoyment. And as an employer, you can gain many advantages from it, and I believe we frequently. And if we were to say to someone like that, be a bit more flexible, that wouldn't work. So it's also very much about, can I organize the tasks in such a way that it suits someone and that it also brings someone joy?
What I quickly learned is that you definitely shouldn't see those people as some kind of temporary workers. So what we do is consciously bring the entire dependents herde with us into our establishment, whereby also the supervisors, but also the staff. So how do we deal with it? Who sits where in their place and who may need to... and you have individuals who can grow. You just have to provide them support so that they can keep progressing in their work and perhaps even re-enter the job market. While there's also many who say, yeah, but then you shouldn't do it anymore because they don't get happy. Repeat it. And who can judge it better than the organization's own people?
In my view, the employee is the best judge of that themselves. Moreover, it is also important that it is easy to quickly go back. Additionally, it's worth noting that the ability to return promptly is a vital factor to consider, that you can just move back and forth in your tasks.
If you're having a good day, it should really just be one job market and not a box, as long as everything goes well. That's what I find beautiful about the circular SME or the transition we're in. Bernu just said that, and it applies to me too. I do not just see it as a raw material transition. You really see it as an opportunity to incorporate the social and ecological values into the whole process. The economic system is truly giving its all and going for it.
And what we observe, because we also witness a lot, we also work extensively with the practical schools and the VSO schools, because you also works together, that you also appreciate the value of materials or things. We obviously sell a lot of stuff, that children also experience that you say, okay, look, just say Adidas shoes, you can buy them at the thrift store, you know. In order for you to also obtain the value in its entirety and for other events to occur, you must purchase all items anew.
That also intersects with education, but also with research. With us, it's those 5 O's, which used to be called the triple helix. That's now our 5 O's, because the research, especially on circularity, the TNOs and the SGS internals, they have to make everything measurable and explain how it works with the numbers in the circular, construction economy. Include education, but what we learn immediately include in a learning trajectory, in a learning circle we do with Winder and Deltriel. What we see that works, you pass on to training programs. A 3rd or 4th year MBO student who will enter the workforce in 1 or 2 years will most likely end up in a traditional company. I find it impressive if they know what's not going well.
Yeah, they should bring that.
Yeah, he says, we sort concrete here daily, it's cool, but we should do it differently. If he knows the issues, it's a big step. So we need to quickly reintegrate that into education.
I have a strong belief that change is definitely going to happen. It just takes a certain amount of time for it to occur. Like Jan Rodman says, it's not just a change of era, but an era of change. I just thought of a completely different question. But maybe you could, what we're doing here, I really enjoy this job, because in the end, I'm not doing it for myself. I do it for my children, so we aim to depart from the earth just a little bit more beautiful than it appears currently. However, you are dealing with students, so essentially we are working exclusively for that particular generation. How does he handle that specific situation then?
Well, that is a good question. There is an example given, but at Windersheim we offer a wide range of different programs for students to choose from. It depends on the program you're in, and you notice that, for example, students, just an example, but a student in commercial economics, they opt for such a study in order to actually become a business entrepreneur and engage in business activities while also making some money on the side. Very linear, actually. Well, not so much linear, but they don't really catch on right away with the word sustainability per se. A considerable number of students who express, yes, sustainability, yeah, it is all good. So you actually have to integrate that into education so that it actually becomes a part of, actually, as a matter of course it is, and not labeling it as, oh yeah, but this is sustainable. No, this is the future. If you desire to future-proof your business, then this is the standard, and I believe that is truly significant.
It's a means, not an end.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. It is indeed a means, and now it is almost seen as a stacking of transitions every time. While circular economy can really serve as a means to make different choices from the design phase and also build that fair chain, I think I personally really resonated with that. It's a piece of justice that you can create, not only in your own country, but also in an international context. And that means a lot, because besides what we do here in NL, there's also a lot happening globally.
But did you react to that because you wanted it yourself? Or is the city of Zwolle already quite far in this as well?
To be honest, I can't say much about the international position for the city of Zwolle. We're actually working on a really cool project called the Port of Zwolle. We're definitely going there in the harbor area, and we'll also see what we can organize in terms of sustainability. That's a fun one. I'm not involved in that myself. More in the back. That's what my colleagues do. Personally, I was deeply moved. I'm actually of Kurdish background. Well, that's a character. Well, if you say the first thing, I'm Kurdish, it's the first thing they say to you. Oh yeah, that's the people without a country. Well, that's true. But I also feel like we hardly need any boundaries. So we're everywhere. Nice. And because of that, we feel at home everywhere. So whether you call it a country or not, it doesn't matter. But that also means that you have fewer rights internationally and that you have to live with that throughout your life and what that means in terms of impact. When I see that, I think we can create a fair system for everyone worldwide so that everyone can live sustainably and we can ensure a better future for all. And in that, we as the Netherlands, as Europe, have a position to take because we still have the opportunities and the luck to actually make the investments.
For sure, man.
So not from the municipality of Zwolle.
We have undoubtedly made a significant contribution to the depletion of the earth in the course of the past few decades, without a doubt. So yeah, we also just have, in my opinion, a really big responsibility to take on our role here.
You are discussing construction. When you witness the sheer amount of items that people bring to us annually, you had the opportunity to see our warehouse this afternoon. The quantity of stuff is truly remarkable. It is unbelievable. Then you are talking about like 3 million kilograms per year or something. Those are all things that individuals actually still bring to us because they believe it can still be reused.
Does that also feel double?
It does feel kind of mixed, yeah, when you see what people are up to. Sometimes when I walk through our sorting departments, I just see that price tags are still attached to the clothing, that there are still items in the packaging. And during the holidays, a large amount of items arrive that individuals have been given by another person. And if grandma fails to comprehend it, then we will confiscate it. So that is an absolutely unimaginable scenario. And me? We had a Christmas store and we had 40 pallets of Christmas stuff. 40 pallets! They all went through. Those are all things that people have brought in over the course of a year.
But Wilma, maybe a fun fact is, the first time we had Christmas pot dolls, we had less stuff than the second time, right?
Yeah, we were like, let's open a Christmas store, you know? At that time, we had 25 pallets with Christmas items. People were like, oh, I can drop it at the thrift store. A year later, we had 40 pallets of Xmas items. And then you simply observed that the store chains, I will not mention any names, but they are also entirely filled. So that's all going to people's homes as well. So next year we'll have 50 pallets of Christmas stuff, and it just keeps going.
And what you see is actually that linear economy that is still growing faster than the circular economy, and that is really a problem.
Well, not the retail sector. Things are not going well for all retail, except for thrift stores and second-hand shops, which are actually thriving at the moment. So that is quite encouraging. Naturally, there are numerous additional regular retail stores, but it is definitely encouraging to observe that individuals are actually able to locate the other stores in that particular area.
The research does indicate that, for instance, in the Netherlands, the proportion of the circular economy is declining, as evidenced by the decrease in its share, and on a global scale as well. So the numbers indicate something different there once again. So the actual transition that truly still has to occur, that is just the way it is, or else we would not receive as much stuff.
We should have no problem accessing the construction site with ease.
Well, construction is a big deal. Sunshine is another one.
20,000 tons, you just mentioned 3,000 tons, and we have one little building that costs 20,000 to buy.
Yeah, I get that. But the thing with people is that you always buy everything new, and that all comes from China in big ships. That's, of course, I reckon the builder in the Netherlands still sees it that way.
Yeah, and that's production and the consumer. It really has to happen on all sides and those links in between. So let's rise up jointly and go for it. We need each other, yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
And buy less new stuff.
I want to discuss a few more things. Among other things, I know that from Lagermatt there are a few special examples, from A to Z circular. Can you give me a cool example that you really look at with pride?
Well, that one definitely proves the opposite. In construction, they often say, like, circular can be done, but it's always much more costly. With more budget, it'll work out. I frequently mention the temporary courthouse, a building that had to be demolished in Amsterdam, specifically located on the Zuidas area. New courthouse came, so no courthouse for a while. Not smart, as it's one of the biggest courts. They rented the building next door, which was available, but it didn't have enough theatres, so they wanted 7 extra rooms for 5 years during the construction. A tender was issued by the Rijkswachtgoedbedrijf, and they say we need a builder who can provide us with 7 courtrooms for 5 years. The funny thing is that the priciest option to create that is 3 options were suggested. The costliest one was chosen because it ended up being the cheapest in the end. Because it was a permanent construction, an architect and a builder who said we're putting up a real building, only it's a detachable building. Then they said it can be reused. Now we call that a circular building. That building is the one, so RVB was the first lucky one when it comes to circularity, because it was the cheapest solution since a guaranteed buyback price was given. So they chose the most expensive solution, but after 5 years they got so much money back that it became the cheapest solution. The person who took back the building sold it back to us. We placed a bid on it. We have reached an agreement that we, because that's who we are at that moment, have purchased detachable buildings made of material, and we immediately sold it to the place where we're setting it up. Because we've become builders in this concept out of necessity, we need to internally ensure that the materials that come out can be utilized and built in compliance with the building regulations. We're currently building it in Enschede, and the one who eventually rents it pays no more per square meter than the neighbor in a new building. So we are market conform. But he has a better story about such a building, so when you go and look, everyone is a sucker. No subsidy has been granted, no one has paid a premium, and if you do it from A to Z circular, you basically have a normal earning model for everyone. I find it stunning.
Normal earning model.
I called it back then when I came across it, so then I had to bring it up internally, of course. Well, I've already come across something like we've made a little peekaboo for ourselves. What should we do in 2050 as today's demolisher? What are we going to do in 2050? We dismantle buildings to either keep them as they are or, like Lego, to put them back elsewhere. We're going to do that now. And then it turns out that it just provides a normal revenue model for everyone. Isn't it fun? But a lot less waste.
You didn't see it because I've been in court. You missed it.
No, exactly. Another example, maybe something that also came up this morning, is the town hall in Venlo, I think. Yes, the town hall located in Venlo. In that particular place, they did not bother with intricate installations, but rather chose to implement a sustainable green ventilation system instead of more complex alternatives. And that has also been investigated. Turned out that over time there was really a lot less sick leave because the building was much healthier. And that was a savings of 400,000 euros per year. Well, those are obviously really cool things also to investigate and to see how we can create that multiple value and actually earn it back in a different way.
I have got a fun example as well. We can see it on these cups. I was talking to Gerard Bosman. He is from Abersenbouw. You know that around this area, in this vicinity, nearby, in close proximity. You know Gerald, and she mentioned that they had a truly difficult time obtaining the necessary raw materials to manufacture bricks. They said it's already so bad that we recycle our own roof tiles. Then he said it was made of ceramic. And he said he could do something with that. We've now baked the first bricks, and we can actually do that. That is currently going like debris under a highway. And he is like, well, I suppose I can work with that situation. And at this very moment, we have successfully baked the initial bricks. Currently, we have completed the baking process for the first batch of scenes, incorporating a significant amount of recycled material from old Zwolle cups into them. So that is absolutely fantastic, of course. So then, yeah, and I think that's...
We have lots for him. Laughs, material lying there.
I am not the account manager for Gerard Bosman, but the idea is that you can grow by utilizing old crockery. This is especially relevant now as we are involved in a chain project where a tableware manufacturer is also an integral part of the chain. The goal is to foster growth and sustainability by repurposing and incorporating existing resources into our project. And we have now examined whether we might be able to produce new crockery from the old crockery that we already have. And that's also feasible. So now in that pilot, as we started with those bricks, we also engaged in that conversation. And now we are aware that it is also possible. Therefore, more information will be obtained about that. But those projects are truly fascinating when discussed collectively. Now I know that too.
We have a creek and sea technique that allows you to bring back different types of minerals to a specific type of raw material. And then you also have to sift it well later. That's quite a science.
Yeah, and if you truly want to make it so great, then it must be, I hear fancy terms, but it must be nearly like powder.
Well, that's also the beauty of appreciation, I think, is that here in the Zwolle region, we can just experiment in a really nice, accessible way. So just see what ideas you have. Indeed, can we do something with that together? And let's get started by just doing it. I think that's really cool to see and experience. And that's how it happens on other levels, too. What I like about appreciation, in my opinion, the research aspect is also fun and enjoyable. For instance, Univ of Amsterdam is researching with Wind and Sime on how does that ecosystem truly work? Who's involved? What links are you missing in that ecosystem? How will it further develop? And how are we going to take the steps towards that future? And that's how you can see that everyone is involved in the network. And with our end, we had a meeting at the City Report during the CE week, brought a really cool creative idea to life. And that's how you can do it through a network, like right away. And that's beautiful.
You have to build chains.
Yes, without a doubt. Fostering connections and networks is of utmost importance.
Then I would like to ask one final question. We're already running late once again. No worries. No problem at all. From your own expertise, your own industry, I want you to think about when we are 26 years ahead, in 2050. Do we have a circular society? And if we do, or if we do not, however you want to say it, what tools do you still need to, as we discussed beforehand, step it up a notch and make further progress? Where should we improve to reach that goal? Hello, Lisbeth.
Oops, yeah, where to put...
I can ponder rest briefly.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot. Well, I believe it is mainly about mindset and how we perceive things. So, folks, it all starts with you wanting it, that you see the necessity, see the urgency, that you have to want it, and that you also, what is called with a fancy word, have a course of action, so that you also know, okay, here I can turn knobs, and in this way we can make it happen together. However, what you still observe excessively at the present moment is that it is occasionally still excessively informal in certain situations. We can do it, but it's not necessary. And also in the field of education, we are putting in a lot of effort on that, collaborating with individuals like Kees Klomp. We brought them in to serve as the driving force in education, with the aim of truly transforming the mindset in education and bringing about a profound shift in the way we approach teaching and learning.
From Zwolle City Municipality?
As a cheerleader, as a go-getter, I think the municipality of Zwolle is definitely very ambitious. They hired me back in those days as a driver of the circular economy, indeed, within the domain of economic affairs, without a doubt. And that's I wouldn't say it's new, but it's rare in local government for economic affairs to be entrusted. I think that's really awesome what we've done from Zwolle, because this transition is often approached from waste and resources, namely just recycling, just reducing. And we truly approached it from different themes in a holistic manner. I believe that is truly the strength. Besides our own drive, I believe that as governments, we have a large amount of work to accomplish in it. First of all, providing space in laws and regulations. Whether it's local or national, we all have something to do. Also pay attention to whether we can prevent accumulations of laws and regulations, because there's already a lot. And we shouldn't just make more rules to further restrict it, but actually give back and get back the freedom as well. So we definitely have some catching up to do. And what is also quite a challenge, I believe, for many, is to really work well together in a collaborative manner. Because working together also means sometimes letting go. And I see that it's a tricky challenge for some, because you still have your own interests as an organization. And within this circular transition, it also means that sometimes we have to let go of our interests for a moment. Actually, we should just listen, like, where are we headed and how will we do that together? And what collaboration is needed for that? And what do I need to change as an organization and as an individual to get there as well? And that means letting go, which is pretty difficult.
I believe it's a nice message. What's up, Wilma?
Maybe in 2050, no thrift stores as people hold on to stuff for a long time, passing it on themselves. Yeah, no more thrift stores. That would naturally, I believe it would be pleasant if we as a thrift store also transform into a sort of pass-through for individuals, so that the items, truly, when it is the end of life, because you observe that a considerable number of manufacturers presently also retrieve items as part of their obligation, and then they all handle it internally. All those people are going to take it back themselves, and maybe they want it while it could actually still have a second life. They already want it back to be able to turn it into raw materials again, where you could say, well, maybe it should all be handed in at the thrift store and that it has a new purpose.
Another gig indeed.
And if it can be reused, that is great, then we will sell it, and otherwise we will send it back to that factory, so where it originally came from. However, if we were able to obtain that, it would require a slightly different approach compared to the current practice of each individual manufacturer picking it up themselves.
And last but not least.
I can get behind this. We're talking about the whole journey to 2050. I think that by 2050 we can all be circular. It won't be on all parts, but mainly it should work out. What I do see is to take steps now to make that acceleration. You must have the pointy end of the table hook first. How do I get the acceleration now? Then it's up to the government. That sounds a bit lame, in my opinion, because I observe that a great deal can emerge from the private sector. Firms realize there's an opportunity in the market. If they don't act, rivals will. So you see the acceleration, the progress in that sense. Even though politics may not be moving as fast right now, the government may not be moving as fast with the formation of the new cabinet. That's when the firms say, we'll keep going because we see the light now, and if not, we're gone. Maybe acceleration is from private sector, but especially, for example, housing corporations and developers who really want to, they sometimes face problem of not being allowed to do something. For instance, there are only alternative depreciation methods. Accountants have various ideas about it. The banking sector too, but now you can see that housing co-ops often cannot do that. It's risky if you give them freedom, but I plead for it. In 2 days, I'll be sitting with the Second Chamber Committee to tell them what we should be looking at in the short term. And one of the things I find is, if you're in a certain playing field, then yeah, you can play with 10% of your portfolio however you want, whether it's writing off or bending rules quickly. Dept of Home Affairs is willing to do it as they have a task too. Domestic affairs not on schedule. Mainly from their corner, it should happen in the Netherlands. The government needs to roll it out. They also have an interest in certain matters being weighed according to how the market would like it, limit the market's playing field, encourage it. Then the initial steps and the rest, if the ball starts rolling, it will keep rolling.
Let's wrap it up. I want to thank you all for being here at this Impact Café and for your input. I want to thank the viewer for watching and hope to see you next time.